Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to Drums and Drams. My name's Cameron, and today I have a very special bottle in front of me. I feel pretty darn confident saying that this bourbon is one of the most anticipated releases of 2024. I am of course talking about the long-awaited Russell's Reserve 15-year Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey. This is bottled at 117.2 proof or 58.6% ABV, and interestingly enough, nowhere on the label does it state that this is a barrel-proof product. So for the purposes of this video, I'm gonna go ahead and assume that they've added at least some amount of water to this to proof it down from its initial batch proof down to that bottling proof of 117.2. That is speculative. Please take that with a grain of salt. And while we're on the subject of speculation and rumors and assumptions, I do have some extra information I wanna share with you about this release, but I wanna be very clear at the beginning of this video that it is unconfirmed information because it has not come directly from the distillery, at least to my knowledge, but I do have a reputable source that I've been running some of this stuff by. So I don't want to get myself in trouble. I'm adding this disclaimer, take everything with a grain of salt, and if I have to issue any corrections or retractions, I'll do so in the description of this video, or if you correct me in the comment section, I'll pin your comments so everybody can see that as well. I think I've covered my bases now, so let's first talk about the batch size of this release. I had been seeing the number 900 barrels being floated around quite a bit. I asked my particular source that I'm mentioning, and that person agreed and had heard, similar things. And so if this really is a 900 barrel release, that is a crap load of whiskey. Now, one thing that went along with that information was that these 900 barrels were mostly short barrels and that the average yield was about 17 gallons out of a possible 53 gallons if it was completely full and there was no angel share. So 17 out of 53, you're basically looking at 2/3 of the liquid inside being lost. Even still, let's say it's 300 nearly full barrels, that is still a humongous release for a limited product like this. And so I'm gonna be very curious to see, across the US as this starts to trickle out into new markets, what the availability is like. And so when you guys start seeing this hit the liquor stores in your area, find out how many bottles are getting in, how many cases, and drop a comment below because I'm gonna be very curious to kind of crowdsource this information and see if this release truly was 900 barrels, even if they are short barrels. The other thing I wanna talk about very quickly is the age of this product. So yes, it does have a 15-year-old age statement on the front. That means 15 is the minimum. But if you remember back to some of those Russell's 13 releases, a lot of those batches had 19 and 20-year-old whiskey in the blends. What I'm hearing about this 15-year is that this is only 15 and 16-year-old bourbon combined, in this release. So basically what we're gonna be getting is a more true representation of the age statement on the bottle. So I think that's pretty much it. We're gonna get into the nose and the palate. We're gonna dive into this whiskey. I'm not gonna do any comparisons in this video. I think it might bog things down because I have a feeling this is gonna be a little bit of a longer review. I'm gonna get into the weeds a little bit, talk about price and all that kind of stuff. So keep your eye on the channel for an upcoming kind of mini live stream where I compare this to Wild Turkey Generations, Camp Nelson Elf, wow, we're gonna leave that in. Camp Nelson F, Single Rickhouse, and maybe a batch or two of Russell's 13. I'm gonna do kind of a dedicated blind flight to put this thing to the test. So with that said, let's get into this on the nose and see what we get. So if you want a deep, dark, and rich bourbon, this is the bottle for you. I'm gonna start by kind of talking about the broad stroke profile and kind of the larger, more prominent notes that I'm getting out of the glass. First and foremost, there's a ton of oak here. Tons of like really musty, almost sour oak, worn leather. Like this is the kind of profile that you're in here, the territory that you're in. Almost a little bit of a dusty feel to this thing on the nose. It's extremely fruit forward on the dark fruit side. So for me, I'm getting a lot of like rich, deep raspberry notes. Tons of like Luxardo cherry. I'm getting dates in syrup. I mean, I'm really mentioning like the darkest notes that I can think of right now as it pertains to the fruit elements. This is incredibly rich, incredibly dense on the nose and fruit forward. A good amount of like aromatic cinnamon as well. Some vanilla cream, and if you know me, when I talk about the best of the best aged bourbons, vanilla cream is a note that often pops up when you get 15, 17, 20, 23 years old with a product that is really of a high quality. That vanilla creaminess starts to develop and it is definitely here. So there's a lot to love for me on this kind of initial first nosing, but I do have one small complaint. I think this product, and look, you can see I've done some damage to this bottle already. I think I've had this for 3 days, if that tells you anything. I can't put this thing down. I'm trying to figure it out, but it's not just curiosity, it's also delicious. Like I am crushing this bottle. It's a serious problem. But the one issue I'm finding with this product is that on the nose, even after a few days of air, it feels a little bit tight to me. Like there's this point on the front of the nose. It's the best way I can describe it, where I feel like it's a little bit closed off. And all of those like really rich notes I'm talking about, you have to dig just beneath this initial punch to get to those. I don't know if that's being a little too overly analytical about this or kind of getting in my own head about this, but I do think it's worth mentioning that while it's a wonderful, deep, rich, dark fruit, oaky kind of profile on the nose, that it's not perfect. Is any whiskey perfect? No, but few can get close. And when you're talking about the price point, $250 on this bottle with a secondary market upcharge right now, around $800. Don't pay that, please don't pay that. I'm telling you right now. I'm expecting something as close to perfect as possible. Considering wild turkey price hikes that have happened in the last 2 to 4 years, if you're gonna be asking $250 for this product, it really needs to perform. So I have, again, one small complaint on the nose, but by and large, I think it is very inviting. It's so dark and so dense. And also, just look at the color of this. When you think about a product that might be comprised almost entirely of short barrels, it would make sense that the color would be this dark. It is pretty wild. So let's go to the palate. We'll come back to the nose and we'll keep digging into this. Cheers. My God, that is incredibly delicious whiskey. Look, I'm gonna pick this thing apart and I'm gonna be very picky, and there might be 1 or 2 other small complaints I have. But the first impression, just what was the overall experience I just had? It's that I am drinking such incredibly delicious whiskey that I'm just very happy. All right, that was pretty lame. Sorry if that sounded super cheesy. It's just wonderful. It tastes incredible. There's this element, this old antique kind of oak, antique store dustiness to the profile. It actually has this note where I had a friend in high school who had this old muscle car. I don't know, decades old muscle car. I don't remember what kind of car it was. This smells and tastes like the inside of that car smelled to me when I would get in. Like, I don't know if it was antique, like leather interior, or like some kind of like suede. Like I have no idea what that smell actually was, but this smells like that old, inside of a car. It smells like an antique store. But again, that first sip for me, it's just delicious whiskey. So we're gonna critique it now. We're gonna dive into more of these notes. Let's go back in for a second sip. All right, so the second sip for me is actually a little bit spicier than the first. And that's not really a typical thing to have happen in this situation. Usually you would acclimate to the whiskey and then it would get a little bit easier drinking. I'm actually picking up even more spice, like spiced dark cherries was the primary note there. I get a little bit of a fudge brownie, molasses, kind of rich chocolatiness on the back end of this. And there might be a little hint of a butterscotch note in here too, that frankly does remind me of a dusty turkey. Now here's my complaint on the palate. This whiskey kind of misses the back of my tongue. I get it a lot on the front. There's like a great initial pop of spice, and really in particular the sides of my tongue and like on my cheeks. I really think it drinks well there. Then it gets into the finish and it goes to the back of the palate, back of the tongue. And I'm not saying there's no finish, but it just kind of skips over the back of my tongue. And then I have that kind of Kentucky hug finish that's going on. I am not somebody that gets too deep into like, what part of the tongue does it hit and all that kind of stuff. But it's noticeable with this whiskey and a few others that I've had so far this year. Like one in particular missed the very middle of my tongue. It was like front and back and there was no mid palate at all with the tasting experience. Every single sip, it felt that way. And this Russell's 15 is kind of similar, where it just continues to miss the back of my tongue. So that to me is like a structural error. If I had to categorize my issue, I would say that's like a structural thing. And kind of similar to the nose, like where it has that a little bit of tightness on the nose and that initial pop that you have to get underneath to get to all of those rich kind of notes that you get on the nose. Both for me are kind of structural errors, because when you think about the profile of this whiskey, you can't complain about the profile of this whiskey. It's about as perfect as an old whiskey profile can get, you know? All of those dark syrupy fruit notes, all of the dusty components to this, the aged antique oaks and worn leather notes, interior of the old muscle car kind of note that I talked about, beautiful aromatic cinnamon, vanilla cream. This hits on just about everything, and it has a really nice kind of feel and texture on the palate as you drink it. So flavor profile wise, this is perfect. Really, it really is. But experientially, there are just two small complaints that I have. And you have to hold its feet to the fire when you think about the price point, you think about it being a limited release, the hype that this thing is getting, the insane secondary upcharge. I don't know, I'm a little torn on this. As delicious as it is, I can't stop drinking it. It's like Michter's 10 2023. It's like the Old Fitz 13 from this year. All of these bottles have their own issues, but they are incredibly delicious. So what does that mean in the grand scheme of things? I don't know. Let's do one more sip and we're gonna wrap this video up. Okay, so the last sip, continuing to evolve now. You still get all those rich fruit notes. Now I'm way more in the territory of like caramel, chocolate, vanilla. Those standard notes that I love in a great Kentucky bourbon. Just a rich caramel sauce, that kind of fudge brownie, dark chocolate note as well, and that vanilla cream. Those come to the forefront now on this third sip. So look, it is incredibly good whiskey. It is delicious. If I saw a case of this at $250 per bottle, I am buying the case. I know I spend a lot of money on bourbon. I have the channel, we do all this stuff, but I would be buying a case. If I found this at $400, personally, I would be buying 3. But I would recommend someone else, if you're into spending a lot of money on whiskey, if you're in that financial situation to do that, I would say buy it and back it up at $400. Once you start getting above $400, to me, it's like, yeah, snag one, you're gonna enjoy it, but there's no way that this is an $800 bottle. It has too many small little things about it that to me feel like I'm not willing to put it in that upper echelon of whiskeys. As far as where this falls in 2024 so far, this is top 5 for sure. I'm gonna be really interested to see how this performs in a blind flight against Generations, Camp Nelson F, Single Rick, and Russell's 13. I honestly think this is gonna mop the floor with all of them, but I've never tasted Generations yet, so that's gonna be the wild card in that blind. So stay tuned on the channel and check out that video when it does come out. Let me know in the comment section what you think about this, what you think about the new pricing that Wild Turkey's rolling with. I know it's out of their hands, but Campari is doing all this and everything's getting jacked up. Let me know what you think. If you've tried this product, how much you're willing to pay for it. So that's gonna do it, guys. Thank you for checking it out. Like, comment, subscribe. Check out the Patreon for barrel picks, exclusive content. I don't know how long this bottle's gonna last me. maybe a week. We'll see. Cheers, guys, and I'll see you next time here on Drums and Drams.